So, I just finished watching Society. This movie was a lot, but only in the last 30 minutes. Society is like a take on the social inequalities of the rich and the average person. There's a lot of shunting. But I guess I should start at the beginning, huh? So we have Billy. Billy looks like Goodwill Marty McFly. Not in a bad way. Just, Goodwill Marty McFly way. And he sees things. Like, the movie opens up with our main character Billy in all his mullet glory, walking into a house all sweaty and feeling really weird, looking very weird. And he is roaming around this large house in the dark, goes into the kitchen, picks up a knife. He holds it like a kid that holds a microphone, and he's gonna walk up the stairs, and then the lights turn on, and a lady, who we find out later is his mother, says, "Billy, what's wrong?" Then it goes to main character Billy, who is seeing a psychiatrist, and he's telling the psychiatrist about all his insecurities and these dreams he's been having. He's scared of everything. And oh yeah, so he's playing basketball. His sister called out to him from the window. His sister goes back in, changing, and then it shows a different perspective. She was putting on her earrings and putting on a dress and stuff. She finds her other earring on the floor by the closet, and she looks in the closet, and there's a dude in there, and that dude is her ex-boyfriend. And he's like, no, don't say anything. Covers her mouth and lays her on the bed. It's like, hey, I could explain. And then Billy comes into her room for whatever reason. I don't know, because the plot said so. And it's like, what are you doing, man? And David is the ex-boyfriend's name, but he's referred to as Blanchard through most of the film. They kick him out. The parents are there, and they're like, my, that was strange. They're really wealthy, this family, like rich. They live in a mansion, Parents start acting real weird. And the dad was like, what was that, Jenny? This is the daughter. And it's like, it was nothing, Daddy. They're very touchy, feely kind of family. Then when the parents leave, Jen goes to Billy and is like, could you zip me up, Billy? All sensual like, which is gross. It's gross. And so he goes to zip up the back of her dress, and then something bulges out of her shoulder, and he's like, ooh. She's like, why? What's the matter? And he's like, nothing. And the next thing you know, it switches to like this high school pep rally chant thing, and it's like, we are number one. Apparently Billy is running for school president, and he's going up against the class Smarty Pants. Billy is making his speech, kind of dunking on the nerd kid, whose name is Petrie. As he's talking about his plans on dress code, there's this girl in the front row who, these are supposed to be high school students, by the way, all of them. It's looking like some 30-year-old how do you duty high school students. She opens her legs, right, and distracts him. And so Billy has a girlfriend, and his girlfriend is like snarling basically in the crowd and slams her book down to get him to pay attention to the subject at hand. And then he says what he plans to do. It's a kind of an awkward scene. His friend, who was moderating the thing, the moderating this little debate, I guess, he goes, she's bad news, man. Then, like, the next scene, he's back at the psychiatrist. He's talking about all his insecurities about his family, how his family is weird, and he thinks he's adopted. The psychiatrist goes, no, 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 no. So he goes home and he goes to check on his sister for whatever reason. He goes into the bathroom and she's taking a shower. He hears pleasurable moaning. So he goes and the shower has a glass door, right? And so in the glass door, you see her kind of like moving from side to side. That's weird. As he gets closer, you could see like the outline of her butt. And then you see that her boobs are on the same side of her butt. I laughed a lot. He opens the door and she's just normal and she's like, get out of here, Billy. I mean, he goes outside and his parents are talking to the gardener, and the gardener has like a plate full of something and it looks like slugs. Yeah, slugs. And he goes and the gardener goes, we have a good haul this year. And Billy's like, I would be, you know, what you doing with those slugs? And the parents are like, can we help you, Billy? He's just like, I'm gonna get going. I'm going to the beach. He's like, okay, don't be late. And I was like, for what? I don't know. So he goes to his car and there's just like a Ken doll there with a screw tucked into its head. And so he finds that odd, but then he drives to the beach. So then he's there with his girlfriend and they just start making out. It's like a 30-second long makeout scene. During that time, his girlfriend was saying how she wanted to get into this party by this bigwig dude named Ted Ferguson. Ted was at the beach, and so Billy gets up to go to try to get invited to this party. Along the way, he sees the girl that spread her legs during the pep rally. And she doesn't say anything. She just sees him and then kind of goes on her merry way. He goes to Ted, tries to get invited to the party. Ted acts like a boo-boo face to him, kind of touching all over his head and stuff. Then he says, I'll let you know. Billy goes to leave, sees his girlfriend's gone. And then who comes but David Blanchard, the creepy ex-boyfriend. Even though everybody else is way more creepy than him now. And David's like, you gotta come with me, Billy. I have something to tell you, but not here. So they go to a secluded spot on the beach, and then Billy plays a cassette tape for him. And I guess he had bugged Jenny's earring. And that's why you found it on the floor at the beginning. And in it, like, Jenny is asking about her first time coming out. Which apparently it's supposed to be a ball, but the way they talk about it makes it seem like an Blanchard fast forwards, you hear the party going on with lots of oohs and ahs and much like the mom from El Gigante, but much worse. And then Ted comes in, and it seems like Ted is putting it down on Jenny. But then there's a lot of screaming like someone's in pain. Billy is like, this is disgusting, you set this up. And David's like, no, I didn't, I promise, this is all strange. Billy takes the tape, runs away, runs to his psychiatrist, who is like, what are you doing? I gotta go somewhere. He's like, no, listen to the tape. The psychiatrist is like, Billy, I'll listen to it later, just leave it with me. And Billy's like, no, I won't leave it with you. But the psychiatrist ends up convincing him, walks away ominously. And my first thought was, yo, he's gonna destroy the tape. Billy's father is talking to this Judge Carter, I believe, cigar smoking dude. And then Jenny comes to the dad and is like, there's a problem with my earring. So he's fiddling with the earring and he finds this little wiretap thing. And they're like, it looks like David has been tailing Jenny. Then the gaslighting begins. There's a lot of time in this film where it seems like the gaslighting is in full effect. You can light a hot air balloon, all right, with all the gas lighting that's being done. He's in school next day and he is talking with his girlfriend. His girlfriend's like, so did we get into Ted's party? And he's like, yo, don't worry about Ted. Something really weird's going on with Ted, and I don't know what to do about it. Stop worrying about the party. And she's like, I want to go to the party. It's important to me. I know what kind of boyfriend you are. Maybe we should start seeing other people. And so she effectively breaks up with him there. And then you enter Billy's friend, who was playing short basketball with him. He's like, whoa, is what I think happened just happened? And Billy opens up his locker. There's like a voodoo doll head in there, which they make it, there's music and make it sound all ominous, but I promise you it doesn't even matter. The voodoo head doll doesn't even matter. It's not even misdirection. It's just there. He doesn't want to talk about what just happened. So he goes back to his psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist is like, I'm very worried about you, Billy. So he plays the tape, and the tape is normal, and they're talking about a ball and dancing. And then when they fast forward the tape, it's them dancing. So he looks crazy to the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist is like, I don't like prescribing drugs, Billy, but you leave me no choice. Billy's like, no. He calls David through the psychiatrist's phone. He goes, doot, 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 doot. He asks David for a copy of the tape. When Billy goes to meet up with David to get a copy of the tape, David's van is flipped over. There's blood everywhere. David is now dead. All the tapes are gone, and the cassette tape is busted. A cop comes over. He's like, you can't just go into a crime scene. To be fair, you can't. And he was like, but that was my friend. And the cop was like, I don't care, scram. And so he goes home. He starts confronting the family, saying there's some weird caca going on around here. And they're like, well, here, don't worry about that. Here's a letter. And the letter is a telegram from Ted saying, come to my party. He goes to the party. He's walking around, sees girl who opened her legs. Her name is Clarissa. Remember that. Clarissa pops up a lot more, and it never stops being weird. And they start dancing a little bit. Enter Billy's ex-girlfriend's friend, who sees Billy hanging out with Clarissa and goes to tell ex-girlfriend. I don't even remember her name. And so we're just gonna call him friend of Billy. Approaches, says, hey, did you hear about David? Says some really mean things to Clarissa, which kind of makes Clarissa make a face and walk away. And Billy was like, yo man, why'd you do that? Friend of Billy says, no, we need to talk about David. And Billy says, I don't want to talk about David. And follows Clarissa into a big tent. Enter this really weird group of people led by Ted. Billy confronts Ted and is kind of really mad. It seems like Clarissa is part of this group of people. That's not why he's mad. And now I remember, he's mad because in the tape it seemed like Ted was kind of going to town on Jenny. And Ted was pretty blunt, and he's like, yeah, I bleepity bloopity your sister. And then I killed David. So Billy fights Ted really quick, but he's outnumbered, so he gets tossed into the pool with Ted snarling at him, saying, you don't know what you're doing. You're making a mistake. But Clarissa is just like, you're a pretty kooky guy. You want to go get soaked? I don't know what kind of euphemism that's supposed to be. 80s people tell me. They go up into a room. They start doing the nasty. And that's when I realized he looked like Marty McFly. Because when he makes his O face, it looks like Marty McFly when he's in pain. Yeah, unnecessary, awkward sex scene. But then you see an arm come over. And the only way that arm could have come over is if she bent it horribly backwards. So he flips out, pushes her off him, and then when he looks back, she's kind of covered by the blankets, but she's leaning one way and her bottom half is completely pointed in the other way. But then, you know, kind of a rub your eye moment, and she's back to normal. It was too good to really let that scare you away. So they're dressed now, and she says, she's serving him tea, and she says, cream, sugar, or do you want me to pee in it? So anyway, her mother walks in, and her mother is strange and serves. I still don't know what what am I talking about? I still don't know what role she serves in the movie, other than being basically an object that appears for plot convenience. But anyway, she comes in. Her mother is dressed strangely, has strange makeup, and when she comes in, has a big fistful of hair in her hand. Billy goes, "It's nice to meet you," and puts his hand out to shake hands. She reaches in her mouth and pulls out some hair and puts it in Billy's hand. Clarissa badmouths her mom real quick. Billy goes, "What's wrong with your mother?" And Clarissa's like, "She does things I don't like." I mean, I guess that's fair. After the hoo-ha-hee with Clarissa, his ex-girlfriend confronts him and is like, "Are you happy now? I hope you're happy with yourself." And while she's confronting him, Billy had noticed that there was just a blow-up doll with the Ken doll stuffed in the blow-up doll's mouth, and he's trying to have this conversation with her with the blow-up doll in his hand. It's really hard to have a serious conversation with somebody when you have a blow-up doll in your hand. So then a string of a couple events happen. He goes to his family and he's like, "You guys are nasty, and I don't know what's going on. I don't like it, and I'm moving out." Then he goes to the funeral of David Blanchard. The friend of Billy says he looks strange and pokes this dead boy's face, and the dead boy's face crumbles in a little bit on the cheek. And inside the cheek you could see flesh, so it might be someone else. So while they're looking at that, the school nerd that was running for school president against Billy shows up and goes, "I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you about the society. But not here. I have to meet you somewhere else." So of course he picks the most obtuse place to meet. And Billy shows up at the woods and tries to find him. And Billy is being tailed by his friend, Nerdman, whose name again is Petri. His name is Petri. He goes to find Petri in the woods. He walks into the woods. Friend of Billy is hanging back, sees a car leave the area that Billy just entered. The person in the car, I think, looked like the dad. So Billy goes into the woods, sees the car, looks like it's abandoned, calls out, nobody's there, looks around, doesn't see anything, opens the door to the car. Petri falls out with his throat slit. So he's freaked, and then he hears laughter. And so he looks around, he goes, "Who's there?" He picks up a stick. He's scared. He backs himself against the car, ready to swing. He hears more voices, and more laughter. So obviously what you do is you run after the noise. And he sees something with a sweater in the bushes. So he goes to that, and it's just a sweater. But behind him, I think it's Ted in some makeup, like some military-esque makeup with mud on his face or something. Pushes him down and runs away, laughing. Billy runs after him again, jumps over a fence. But he goes to someone's random house's door, and who opens up the door? Clarissa. And he's like, "Clarissa, what are you doing here?" And Clarissa says, "I live here." Billy says, "Well, I need to use your phone." So Billy calls the police, and him, Clarissa, and two cops go back to the scene where Billy found Petri. Petri and the car have been swapped out, it seems like. It's a different car. And there's nothing inside the car but some shreds of clothing. And he goes, "This is a different car, I swear." Cop doesn't believe him, and he's like, "Are you on drugs?" He said, "No." And so it seems like they're gonna arrest him and Clarissa, but they let him go. So they don't go home. Instead, just sit in Billy's Jeep and sleep. So then, I guess the next day, there's supposed to be another presidential debate, and Petrie isn't showing up. Billy goes, Petrie isn't here. He's never late. He's always on time. He does this, this, and this, and he's not here. Do you know why he's not here? Because he's dead. And you know what? David Blanchard's death was not an accident. They were both murdered. And I'm here to expose it. And they're all laughing at him, and it's like, ha ha ha. Billy looks farther into the room and sees Petrie walk up and say, I had car trouble. Everybody laughs Billy out of the auditorium. Petrie rubs his neck. Friend of Billy confronts... I should have called him Fob. So, Fob is his name. Fob says to Billy, hey, you really went off the rails out there. You coming to your own conclusions. I saw some weird stuff out there. I followed you. I saw your dad come out of the forest, and Petrie was rolled up in a blanket. They took the other car out and brought this new car in and stuff. So, you know, something weird's going on. Also, I'm the one who's been planting all these blow-up dolls and voodoo heads. And Billy says, well, why'd you do it? Bob says, because you're only my best friend when it suits you, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. And Billy says, you're right. I'm sorry. Bob says, you're right. It's okay. Best friends for life? Yeah. And they make up just like that. I guess that subplot is taken care of now. So Fob and Billy go to Billy's home. And Billy says, wait outside for me. Parents and all the family are there. And the psychiatrist. And the mother says, oh, Billy, you made it. You almost ruined everything. That's an odd thing to say. But it all makes sense, kind of. When outside, Fob notices an ambulance pull up. And suddenly, there are paramedics behind Billy, grab him, and then the psychiatrist says, you know I don't like to prescribe drugs, and then knocks him out with a sedative. Fob sees Billy get taken away in a ambulance. Fob follows Billy to the hospital. Fob asks for Billy at the main desk. The main desk eventually is like, well, you'll have to check at the morgue. It says Billy's dead here. Billy wakes up. He wakes up in a room that does high enemas, which is a thing, I guess. It's when you shove a lot of water up the hoo to flush everything out, you know, keep it squeaky clean. Not hating. Billy seems like he's a little loopy from the sedative. Walks outside, no resistance from the hospital. Walks outside. His Jeep is now there, which was brought over. Oh, also, shame on Fob. He parked in a handicap spot. You're not handicapped. Then shame on whoever brought the Jeep over. They were also parked in a handicap spot. Fob walks up to Billy, who jumps in his Jeep, and he's like, what happened? I thought you were dead. And he's like, no, I'm fine. Like, he's hopped up. He is talking like he's hopped up. And he's like, I'm fine. They couldn't keep me. No siree. Woohoo. And then Fob says, you don't drive? Don't you see they're setting you up? Now, I thought they were trying to set him up so that he can just die in a car accident or something. No. Billy drives away. Billy goes to Clarissa's house and just kind of slaps her around a bit in his hopped up stupor. And she's just like, hey, it's okay. It's all right. It's not all right. And so he leaves Clarissa. Fob had caught up with him via car, and just as Billy was pulling away, Fob gets back in his car, and strange mother of Clarissa, who was eating the hair, is in the back seat. Starts fondling his hair, and Fob is weirded out, but then he goes, you know what? No, we're going for a drive. And he takes Clarissa's mother with him. Billy enters his house. Once Billy enters his house, the opening scene of the movie where he's having the dream starts up. He gets to the base of the stairs where his mother confronted him at the beginning. Nothing happens. He walks up the stairs looking for his family. I guess with the intention of shiggity shanking them. And no one's home. So then he looks around. And he looks out the window and he sees his parents drive up. So when his parents enter the doorway, he goes, "Mom, Dad, I think we should talk." But then plot twist, the lights all turn on and there's like a whole party full of people there, of like 60 people or 50 people or however many people. And then they take one of those animal harnesses that you put around animals, like animal control. And the psychiatrist is there, the mayor is there, everybody's there. Ted's there, by the way. Clarissa's there too. She's in on this, but she doesn't seem happy. She seems very distraught that Billy is captured. So then the father goes, "You were never one of us. You couldn't be. You have to be born into the society." So it turns out, I guess Billy was adopted. Why he doesn't remember being adopted? Was he adopted as an infant? If so, why did they groom him all that time just for this? I don't know. It's better not to think about these things. The mayor gives a big speech. I can't remember what the speech was, but the one line I do remember is, "I love the thrill of the hunt, and I love the taste of the shunt." Anyway, Fob was sitting outside and more people were pouring in. Apparently they don't see him. I don't know. Clarissa's mother was sitting back there in the back seat with him, and they are just watching people come in. The ambulance pulls up, and then there's just someone mostly naked in a gown, in a hospital gown, and being dragged in. And cut back to Billy, and lo and behold, the man is David Blanchard. He's alive. How? I don't know. They kept him alive. They got a body that they made to look just like him, I guess. David gets flung onto the couch, and the shunting begins. All the members start touching each other. They start touching David. The lights get real red. They strip all the rest of what little clothes he had on, except for boxers, and they start rubbing on him. Slime starts going everywhere, all over people. It's really slimy. And then people's faces and body parts start melding together into one big pot of people pasta. And David is caught in the middle of this going, I mean, I would be too if I was getting absorbed, in effect, into the bodies of these people. I guess that's what you call shunting. I don't know. Yes, it's basically a OGRY of people, creature, spaghetti things, Gak, Stretch Armstrong, people. The psychiatrist reveals that they are not of the same species as humans. What they are, I don't know. Billy goes, "You're aliens." And the psychiatrist goes, No, we're not aliens. But we've been around as long as people. Okay, that's the furthest explanation you get. I mean, in this movie, not a lot gets explained. Not even a little bit. And so, yes, the shunting. Someone grabs his cheeks and puts their fingers deep into his cheek. Like deep in there. Like you grabbed Jello and you squeezed it and your fingers pushed through it. That's what it looked like. But it was a butt cheek. Then the mayor shows up. David's body is all spread out. Somehow he's still alive. And the mayor, with his cigar, plops himself on top of David. He says, "Let's get to the bottom of this." It's a butt joke. Because then he takes his fist and jams it up underneath the little clothes that David had left. And then the next thing you know, Judge Carter's hands are coming out through David's eye holes and mouth and stretching his body up. And David pretty much ceases to exist. While all this is going on, Billy wants to escape. Can't really escape because Ted is holding him. Clarissa tells Ted to stop it, and Ted is like, what, do you have feelings for this species scum thing? Listen, we'll all get a share, okay? Clarissa's like, no, I don't want to. Meanwhile, Fob, with Clarissa's mother, who I assume is one of these beings that is just happily tagging along with him, they're sneaking onto the premises, and they encounter the police officer. And the police officer's like, hey, you can't be here. And basically Fob sicks Clarissa's mother on the police officer and says, look, get the hair. And they take him out. Fob dresses up as the policeman and they go into the house. When they're inside the house, they see David, what's left of him, meshed together with 10 or 15 bodies worth of melted together gooey bodies, having all sorts of pleasurable experiences. Fob doesn't run away. He just kind of looks on in horror, and nobody notices that he's not supposed to be there. Clarissa, meanwhile, goes to Billy and unhooks him from the kind of the holding apparatus and says, get out of here, I love you. So I don't know. So she is one of these things, but she fell for Billy. That's cool, that's fine. Billy gets up, tries to bolt through the front door, gets pushed back by a group of people, starts getting chased by the psychiatrist, who has some kind of bad prosthetic on that makes his smile really like jokery, and it's very apparent that it's a prosthetic, but it's fine. It's fine. I will suspend my disbelief. The psychiatrist tries to grab him by turning his head into a giant hand and then reaching out his hand, which looks like he's trying to pinch Billy's nipples. Obviously horrified at the prospect of getting his nipples pinched, Billy runs into a bedroom, his parents' bedroom, he realizes, and he sees his mother laying in the bed half covered. When she uncovers herself, she's got a butt on the front, her legs are man hands and arms, and she kind of walks towards Billy, and then Jenny's head comes out the bottom. So Billy scoots away, and there is another there's another body under the blanket, and you can see the feet, and it looks like someone's crouched in the ball under the blanket, and the blanket gets removed, and the whole reason I picked this movie to watch comes to fruition. It is a butt. It is a butt. It's a spread butt, and in the center, instead of a booty hole, is Billy's dad, his face. And early in the movie, Billy had told his dad, F you, butthead. Classic line. His dad is like, hey Billy, look, I guess I really am a butthead. Made the whole movie worth it. Then he blows raspberries at Billy. Billy runs out of the room like he wasn't just being chased by the psychiatrist. Of course, the psychiatrist catches him and brings him back down. So his escape plan didn't work. I guess he sees no way to escape. So he challenges Ted to a fight. Everybody goes back into their human forms. And I guess they're just like, okay, well, I guess we're gonna have this fisticuffs battle. The judge announces there's gonna be a fight. Billy and Ted face off, just punching and punching. Ted is beating up Billy. Out of the blue, the friend is like, no, Billy, and gets himself caught. Even though he's been standing in the middle of the crowd of goopy people, just looking on all this time. But he says that and he gets caught, so he's being held. Clarissa's like, no, stop. And Ted is going to win, but then he gets pushed by Clarissa, and then Clarissa gets punched, and then that springs Clarissa's mom into action, who belly flops onto Ted, knocking him away from Billy, knocking the wind out of Ted. The role of Clarissa's mom really bothers me. Doesn't seem like she has an actual role aside from those plot points. So then Ted gets up to strike the finishing blow. He kisses Billy to absorb his face, but then Billy strikes back by not letting himself get probed with Ted's fist, and instead probes Ted in a plot twist of the ages, and sticks his hand all the way up, and Ted screams and goes, "Bleh!" And then Billy does the same thing that the judge did to David. His hands come out Ted's mouth, but then he grabs the face and pulls back down and literally pulls Ted inside out, I guess killing him. I'm not sure. All the people stop cheering and they are mad and scared. They're like, oh, he pulled Ted inside out. So then Billy gets up, grabs Clarissa, grabs Fob, and they're just like trying to leave now. And the father is put back together apparently. And he's like, you're never gonna get away with this. Billy just punches him and they leave. And Billy just looks at his dad and says, butthead. And then they get into his Jeep and they drive away. And that's it. That's how the movie ends. The butt face was worth everything.